All right, hello and welcome everybody. Today's video is very interesting. We work with Fabian. He's part of the Swedish national team, 23 years old, 190 tall, 95 kilos. Bit of a bulky guy like myself, but taller. And Fabian, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Moiler, this is how you pronounce it in German. I think there's some similarities between our languages. All right, let's get right started. Fabian said he was working on a catch, and before I get into this video analysis, why don't you have a look, my community, you girls and guys and everybody, and just let me know what you think. Here we go. All right, good. Now let's start with the things that I personally like. And one of the most important things I personally liked, I mentioned this in the last Zoom live on Saturday, I think it was. So to my team, I remember I talked about the slow catch, that a catch is actually something that is not quick. A lot of people who learn to row seem to learn the language that you gotta be quick at the catch, you gotta be aggressive at the catch, you gotta be fast at the catch, because if not, then the whole stroke is lost. It couldn't be far away from the truth, in my personal opinion. A quick catch is nothing you target. A quick catch is something that happens if you prepare well. And Fabian does that. So if you look just at the catch sequence, let's just let it play at regular speed. You see, just before the catch, it's becoming slow. There's endless time, and this is good. There's no stress, there's no hurry. It's just drive. That's awesome. I will talk about a couple things in a negative way soon, but for now, let's focus on the positives, because this guy is not a beginner. If you're part of the national team in Sweden, you can row. You're good. Another thing that works very well is the stability of the body at the drive. So there is a little shoulder up and down, a little early pivot, and I will talk about this later, why it is. But for the rest, you don't see much difference between the preparation and the drive. Let me play it in real speed. The way he goes forward is essentially the way he does the drive. And that's another big plus I want you all to focus on and think about from the outside. When you look at somebody and you say, wow, this rower is awesome, you understand not really what the reason is, but what makes you feel impressed is the lack of, or the absence of, unnecessary body motion, as I like to call it. And there is clearly not a lot of extra body motion. Talking about no unnecessary body motion, or body motion at the right point of time, is when he starts the pivot. And the pivot happens at an excellent point of time. At that stage, he opens that hip angle. I call it hip angle alpha. I just came up with this, and to me it makes sense. I hope you guys know what I mean. And there are two ways to open this hip angle. Way number one is with the leg drive. So if you push with your legs, the quadriceps is going to, as your legs start to extend, your quadriceps, your thighs are actually going to distance themselves from the upper body. And that's the way I want it to open. What a lot of people do is they open hip angle alpha with an early pivot of the upper body. This is nothing. When you row, you shouldn't really say, oh, I gotta open my hip angle alpha at a late stage. Aram said this in the last video. You run crazy. Don't do that. It's just the way you analyze something, you look at it. We'll later talk about how to reach that and how to do it. So he opens that angle pretty late, which is pretty awesome. It means that he focuses on a pretty solid leg drive before he even starts to use the upper body. Now the question is, when does the upper body ever start to be in use? Not yet. Now, when the legs start to be in their about strongest leverage position, it's time for the upper body to start to assist, because it takes a bit of time. It's not like, now I want to use the upper body before, neurologically speaking, your muscles actually engage and activate. In spite of all the muscle memory you may have, it takes a bit of time before you can use the upper body. And So it's like you got to plan ahead. Sounds sophisticated, but if you want to catch a ball, you want to react quickly, it takes time to practice reaction time. This is essentially what I mean. You get it? I hope so. If you want to create an effect of the upper body, you need to do the motion before you want to have the effect, because also this takes time. And he does it at the right stage, because now the legs run out of motion almost. He uses the upper body mass, and that's another big plus. He does not engage the shoulders or arms too early. Let's reverse this a couple of frames. Usually we say, I want to have full acceleration during the drive, a negative example. So what you would do is do an arm upper body motion, then Godzilla the stroke all the way to the finish. And this is not what we want. And Fabian does it very well here. I mean, he also gets a lot of coaching, and if you're in the national team, you don't do a lot of different things than rowing. You may have rowing education, you may have rowing in work, but rowing. You don't run your own business. You don't have 7 kids to take care of. You row. So of course technique becomes better, but we can all learn from that. So he opens the upper body at the right stage, and he does so. Craig, this is something you might want to look at a point of time where the shoulders are not engaged. So he trusts that the blades are anchored correctly. Looking at the blades, look at this oar bend. This is pretty impressive at this late stage of the stroke. So right now the oars are almost perpendicular, and there's a nice pivot and a nice oar bend. And that oar bend is just, it's like a whip. And these are pretty stiff carbon oars too. It's not like wooden oars you could bend and they wouldn't break. This is carbon. And carbon doesn't flex that much. I know oar manufacturers say super soft, easy, flexy, bendy, blah. It's carbon. It's carbon. It's not wood. So the super flexy carbon is still much stiffer than any piece of wooden oar you can possibly get. So if you grew up rowing in the 70s and 80s, it's a different ballgame, but you probably are aware of that. And at this stage, upper body sets in, shoulders are still relaxed, and this is awesome. Now comes something, you see the arms engaging, and this is something I will discuss a little later, if this timing here at the finish is actually beneficial or not. It's a little side note, it's not a major issue, but it is something that I found worth taking notes. Let's look at the recovery. You see something, a motion that is interesting. Not all rowers do it, but he starts to bring the upper body forward right before the arms lead out or the hands lead out. Now the lead out is one of the big topics where there are a lot of misconceptions, in my humble opinion. Usually you're being taught at the recovery, first put your hands away, bend the upper body, and then slide forward. And although this may look like it could be true, it's not. In my humble opinion, it works in a completely different way if you want to activate the right muscles, the right muscle chains. There are 2 separate ways to go forward, and the first, or 2 separate, how do you put that? There are 2 separate motions going on at the same time. The first motion is here pretty low in the hip, so you want to get the hip leverage and prepare the hip leverage. So you want to be from an angle that's pointing towards the bow. You want to bring it to a stern facing position. Yeah, but that requires strength and flexibility. So if you lack both of these, I've put out two free videos about stretching and core, and these should be your best friends if you lack any type of flexibility or strength right there. The second motion that's going on is that you actually want to prepare not so much the hands, but you want to prepare the forearms. And in the last Zoom Live we did on Saturday, I told my people and say, hey, don't try to bring your hands forward. Try to push your hands forward by means of getting the hip and pelvis in the right position. So you want to have a nice tilt, and then push your hands forward by means of using your low trunk hip connection to get a little push here. And the idea about this is that it helps you to completely deprive your hands of any upper body weight, which is essential in order to be effective later on. All right, let's follow Fabian, what else he does here, because up to now, a lot of pluses and bonuses, and there's a reason. A little bit of an early knee bend right now, so he doesn't really finish the hip transition on a way forward. Maybe a lack of flexibility, maybe because he's tired, because this is apparently just sub-race pace. And you also see the back is not as stable as it should be, but Fabian, I think you wrote in your email, you say you're working on sitting up tall at the finish to get the drive through in a better way. I think you should also keep this and that entire low trunk connection. You know, this is important at the recovery. You want to make sure you sit tall and keep this low trunk stability, not the shoulder stiffness, but the low trunk stability with the hip connection to have a nice rock over. It's much easier to get it done that way. Because if you're too softy here, it's very difficult to bring the hip forward. The hip has to do a lot actively, and you don't want to do that. So, girls and guys, this is very important in my humble opinion. If you are to finish here, try to sit tall, low trunk stability, not stiffening up the shoulders. Shoulder girdle, shoulder blades, super easy, relaxed. And you want to be stable in your low trunk and then move forward. So this is important. Let's continue with the praise, Fabian, because what you do is awesome. As we go forward, watch the blade control. This is one of the rare videos I've seen where people actually have recovery blade control the way it should be. I'm not sure, Fabian, if you could actually square the blade now, but at least you wouldn't catch a crap if you did so. So this is pretty good. It's much better than anything else I've seen so far, and I get a lot of videos. And now on the way forward, you can actually square. You have to bring the shaft up a little. I'm not sure if you can see this. Shaft goes up just ever so slightly right there. Whoop. It's a slight vertical motion here, but it's not a lot. And the problem, and now, should I start with negatives? No, let's stick with the positives. So there's enough room to square, which is pretty awesome. Now we're almost done with the full stroke cycle. Now a lot of relaxation at the catch. You see a last bit of extension in the arms, not so much forward, but outward, which is good. A very smooth and soft catch. This guy is doing about 28 strokes a minute. If I perceive this to be true, I didn't count it, but it's certainly not low steady state. During the place the blade process, there's barely any look at that shoulder stability. This is pretty awesome. So Fabian, if you expected a lot of negative feedback, no. I just did my round of praises because, I mean, you're doing a great job. You and your coach, awesome. By the way, I'd be curious to know who your coach is. Maybe I know him. Yeah, and then you are in this nice late upper body transition. Let's look at this entire thing in live speed once more so we can enjoy this. And then I'm going to start talking about the deficiencies. Whoop. Excellent. All right, good. Now, there are a couple of things that struck me to be, I don't want to call them awkward, but certainly not as effective as they could be. And the most important thing, and I've mentioned this with Onat Kazak, the Olympic qualification candidate from Turkey, who actually qualified after he sent me the video and I talked about it. And his coach was friendly enough to post a comment in the YouTube section. So Onat Kazak is now going to Tokyo. It's pretty cool. But Onat and Fabian, you two share the same problem. You focus so much on the drive that there's not much left for the second recovery phase or the second speed build-up phase, which is the recovery. In my opinion, you can speed up the boat more during the recovery if you had more body control. And the body control thing is something I mentioned before. Right now, if your knees break so early, it's very difficult to control the boat. So what I actually want is a little bit more tension in the hamstrings right there. This is not a lot. A little bit of tension in the hamstrings, a little bit of a load, vertical downforce on your heels. To me, if I do this, to me it always feels like I can sit tall more easily, and at the same time I get to control the boat on the way forward. And then it's much easier to get the first rock over right. So the way to solve this, in my opinion, is at the finish, try to sit tall, just like I said before, connect the low trunk, so chest southwards to your hip pelvis, keep it at the finish. That's the trick. At the finish, when you are in a lean back position and you don't need a lot of flexibility, namely Let me show you where this should be. Now it's pretty easy to sit tall because you are in a comfortable position. And now you should keep that and pivot forward. At your level, you should be able to have enough flexibility and strength to keep the knees down until you have reached the final forward lean angle you want to have at the catch. This is never going to be the case during a race. I instruct my athletes to have as much as possible of that muscle memory because this is what's going to cause you a lot of speed during a race. If you don't do this, you're inclined to lean back and do an empty motion. And the way you do your finish makes me think that this must have been an issue with you, which is why you cut the finish pretty short. Reminds me a bit of Kjetil Borch, the Norwegian sculler. Yeah, if you hear the background noise, my apologies. I'm doing this in the Biro office. So the guys are outside working and I took some time off and said, I gotta make a video for you guys. All right, I had to start the recording. I had to restart the recording because my SD card was full. So what I wanted to talk about is that at your proficiency level, you should have enough flexibility and strength to get most of the rock overdone before you bend your knees. So you get a little tension in the hamstrings right there and you get a little downforce in your heels. Allows you to have way more control over the boat. And then you're not a passenger. This is essential, especially in the quad. If you do this in the quad, you just, with this, you're about 5 to 10 seconds faster on a 1K at average level. I mean, if you're already super fast, it's not going to get you 5 seconds more or less actually, but it's going to make you a lot faster because first of all, you distribute your body weight in a better way in terms of you have less on your hands and more on your seat and more on your feet, so you are better connected in the lower parts of the boat. Makes you less unstable for the same reason. And at the same time, it allows you to pull the boat underneath yourself towards the direction of travel. And I got 1 or 2 comments say, this is not possible, I don't care so much about sophisticated calculations if I can see the raw speed difference. I'm a practical guy. So for me, it's interesting what works. Now, this is not about what could work. This is about what works. So bear with me. This is what I found to be super effective for all athletes I work with. This is one major issue. And I think this is also the most important issue, that you are not accelerating the boat all the way forward as much as you could. Because it's also visible that you actively try to slow everything down towards the catch. And this is something you can work on with people at Fabian's level. If you do it correctly, a slowing down of your body mass at the catch should actually not be necessary, should not be required. Because if you don't even move your body, there's nothing you need to slow down. The idea is your body is the fixed mass. It's much heavier than the light boat, even taking into account all the hydrodynamic effects you see right in front of that displacement shell, so container ship / single scull. It's still much lighter than your body weight. So Fabian weighs 95 kilos according to FISA. So that's a lot of kilos. You should be able to sit still and just propel something a bit more that is already going in the right direction, meaning this way. So if I sit still and I try to use the foot stretchers, imagine the foot stretchers were mobile and your seat were fixed. This is how I envision it when I row. And then I just pull the foot stretchers towards my seat. That is only possible if my hip is pointing the right direction, which is not the case with you, Fabian. But what you do well is all the way forward, you then course correct. So right now it's pointing the wrong direction, but now you're working on strength and you almost elevate. It's barely visible. I don't know if you see this, guys, but I see a bit of muscle tension change right there. And the reason why I think I see this is because usually when people don't do this, they slump over at the catch and almost rest their upper body weight on their thighs, on their knees. And Fabian doesn't do that. So from experience, I know if I do this, I'm not tempted to slump over. But if I don't focus on sitting tall, then I'm going to slump over and I'm going to lose all my tension at the catch. And this is how you can reproduce what's actually going on inside that body. Towards the catch, another thing, your seat is still. although the blade is in motion. So there's a standstill at the catch. Now, you could say the seat should never stop moving, but this would possibly lead to the point where you would just move back and forth with that seat like a sewing machine, because the seat should never stop. It's a byproduct. That's the thing that is you can see. That's the visual result. But the original reason for your seat never to be still is that you pull the boat, and with the last bit of pulling, you already let the blades approach the water. And this is not the case. I mean, specifically, if you go forward, now you are in this upward motion with the blades. When I was busy praising Fabian, I said, look, there's enough space to square. Yes, but there was still a little upward motion on the shafts. So solution for that, there are 3 points actually. Point number one, more when you go forward, blade control wise, a little more clearance between shaft and water. It's not so much blade and water, shaft and water. That's what interests me. The shaft should never go up towards the catch, because this would require your hands to go down. That's the wrong direction. At the catch, you want to go up. Spread your wings. Second way is pull the boat towards yourself all the way to the catch. So you pull the boat towards the catch and not you slide forward to the catch. And if you do this, you have almost everything solved then. And the third thing is get the hip tilt, or don't lose the hip pelvis low trunk connection all the way to the catch, because then all of the upper body weight is on the seat and feet and not so much on the hands. And this allows you to let go of the oar handles at the catch. That's a good term probably to put it. Letting go of the oar handles at the catch, and then you would be nicely prepared. So the fact that the seat sits still at the catch is only the result of too much task load at the catch. And the 3 steps I just mentioned help you to reduce the task load. All right. Good. There is one last thing I want to mention, and it is, although your shoulders are super relaxed, there's an interesting bend in your arms, and that bend in your arms happens now. It looks like you try to bring your hands together, which is awesome. I don't know, Fabian, if you have time to, I think Busen in Sweden, you guys have a 2012 handmade Biro Pro. That's 9 years old now. But if you happen to be there, take a bit of time and do one exercise for me. I call it cross-hand rowing. You can only do this on a biro rower. So you get on a biro and row cross hands. So you row this way. And it looks awkward, but what it does to the appropriate receptors is actually parts in your body to tell you where which body part is. You know, they tell the brain, I'm this position, that position. And you need to reset these every once in a while with a bit of a different motion. And doing this exaggerates the requirement of shoulder mobility. If you work out all winter, you don't have this issue. But if you work out a linear drive first, and you only row straight, you lose your mobility and also the understanding of mobility you have. Because the true motion in the boat is this. It's not this. And this motion requires the rest of the body to work in a different way as well. So if you always do that motion, it's a super swift transition to the water. But if you do a linear motion, you're more inclined to stiffen up. Especially you in Sweden, you have winter, I think, 6 to 8 months a year. I think more 8 months. Huh? I remember Anna Malvina, a good friend of mine, also part of the. Is she part of the national team right now? I think could be, but she rowed for Sweden Olympics in Rio when I worked with her. She once posted on Instagram in April, I think, said, "Oh, finally the ice is gone," and my wife and I were sitting here and say, "The ice cream store in Vienna just opened up. Finally, the ice has come." So that's about the weather difference you guys have up there in Sweden, in the north of Europe, and we in Vienna in Central Europe. So you have about 8 months of winter. Just a little bit. On the way forward, do not try to bring your hands straight forward. Not just during your drive, try to be flexible, but also on the way forward. And by this I mean, let your hands be guided by your inboards. And then on the way forward, you basically push with your pelvis forward, and your hands are just passengers on the way forward. A little bit of vertical force to get the blade clearance, the shaft clearance you need. But for the rest, you feel how your hands go across, move out, move out, move out. And this is what you need, because the way you move forward, you're inclined to move back. And step number 2, of course, is to do the same thing during the drive. So the main energy derives from your hip here through your hands. So don't even think about altering your handle height. Don't even think about controlling your hands so much. Wait what happens. If you position the hip, pelvis, low trunk correctly, and if you're as flexible as you already are in your shoulders and shoulder blades, shoulder area, you get all the ingredients you need for a super fast stroke. All right, good. Let's look at this rowing a bit more. Looks awesome until you look a little closer, and then you find the deficiencies. You find where the speed is lost. And it's not easy at this level to build more speed. Rowing is a very physical sport, but at the same time, it's a very technical sport. You need to understand how to use your body weight to move this little shell that is underneath yourself. Yeah. And also the reason why this video analysis is so long is because Fabian's quality of rowing is awesome. It's not like, you need to do this, it's obvious. It's not so obvious here. It's pretty difficult to find the right things. But I think I found that if I would be working with you right now, Fabian, this is what I would focus on for a couple of sessions and try to make you feel that. All right, good. Everybody, I'm curious what you think, and I would like to invite you to join rowing.zone. It's free. Everybody can join, everybody who likes rowing. It's a new rowing social network that is dedicated to rowers and everybody who loves rowing. So I founded this because I think there needs to be a place where everybody meets. World champion, total beginner, it's all one community. All right. And I would love to connect with you on rowing.zone. I would love to hear your ideas about this video, but also topics about future videos. So things I can help you with. All right. I wish you all the best. Go to armtraining.com if you want to work with us. Join the team, get a training plan, and get started. See you next time. Bye-bye.